Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Home Hero Podcast. Today is a special interview with someone who I've known for nearly 10 years. Is actually a business coach of mine, a mentor, and has become a great friend. Before I introduce Michael and have him we'll get to know him better and have a great conversation here around business. How I came to know Michael, if you've listened to our Handyman Success podcast, I've mentioned this story a handful of times, but when I started my business, I obviously had no idea what I'm doing, still trying to figure out some things. And my wife had this big car repair that we did not expect, and it ate into a huge chunk of our savings that we built up to make this leap of faith into entrepreneurship. And while I was at the auto shop, about to spend a good chunk of this nest egg, I was thumbing through the business cards there at the auto shop, and I pulled out Sundance Coaching, business coach. And because I had no revenue at that point, I just started, was trying to hustle and get myself out there. I was like, I should probably give this guy a call. And so that was how I got to know Michael Oakes. So I started my business net negative money because I paid a business coach, and it's been one of the greatest investments I've ever made in my entire life, personally, professionally. So all that being said, today we're going to be chatting with Michael Oakes. Michael, thanks so much for joining us, man. If you could kick us off, just, tell us about a little bit about where you are right now. And then we'll kind of dive back into history to kind of learn your experience and FedEx and all the amazing story that you bring to the table.
Well, nice to see you guys. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure to hang out with you, Jason, even if it's virtual. We spent a lot of good times together, face to face, and look forward to doing that again soon. I'm actually in Montana as we speak. I've got a little side business because I always seem to have one because I like business so well. We got a vacation rental business just outside of Yellowstone National Park, about 15 miles away in the Yellowstone ecosystem. It's the wilderness for sure. And just enjoying my summer up here, although headed back to my home in California for a few days to visit with my wife and a couple of my children. So that's where I'm at right now. In my business life, I'm still coaching and enjoying the heck out of coaching. And Jason, it's been almost 10 years, brother. and you are definitely one of my success stories. It's great to have those. I, like everyone, I've also got those failures in my history as well, of people that I've coached. And mostly I've fired them because they don't come through and do the things that they say they're going to do and know that they need to do. But it's a common frailty, I guess, of entrepreneurship is people who can't comply with their own dreams of success. So.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. We definitely got some good questions, hopefully some great takeaways for our listeners. Just identifying the common threads of things that can go wrong, common threads of things that can go great. And so, as y'all know by now, Michael and I have been working personally together almost 10 years. When I started my business, how he helps us, and here's just a general encouragement: is one, I'm a huge advocate of having a coach in your corner. And how Michael has been a massive blessing to our business is the accountability. So just weekly accountability. So accountability in a coach is absolutely critical. Another huge part is the actual financials and understanding our books and the profit and loss and following the numbers. And so when you have this like financial expertise and you have this accountability from someone who understands how to grow a business and have it be profitable and provide a great product. These are all attributes that I just so incredibly value from Michael and a lot of other coaches out there. So it's been a huge pillar of accountability and motivation, holding me accountable to, work towards those goals that we've been setting almost 10 years. So baby steps over time will take you many miles is an encouragement I have for business owners out there. Michael, I think you have been one of the unique people in my life that has seen every single little baby step over the last 10 years. So all that to say, like, Michael, let's go back in history, man. Like, tell us like how you got started in business. I know FedEx was a big part of your story, and 1-800-Courier, your entrepreneurial journeys there before you started coaching. So take us back and kind of how you got into business and kind of fostered this passion and love for it.
Well, I don't know if I can remember that far back. No, uh, I went to college in the East Coast. I grew up there, and um, I wanted to be a health educator and also do some basketball coaching. Basketball was my favorite sport growing up,
It would
and
be when you're 6'4".
well, it kind of fit in for me. And of course, I like to play. So going to school to become someone who teaches play uh, was an easy fit for me. I spent 5 years at the university, Montclair State University in New Jersey, and came away with a master's degree in health education, physical education, and recreation. And immediately started teaching at one of the other state colleges in New Jersey. And I was teaching health courses to college students as well as some physical education courses. And I was assistant coach to the varsity basketball team for a number of years. So the kind of helping people, coaching people, teaching people uh, goes back to those beginnings. Um, but uh, I guess, well, in 1973, a while back, I left the East Coast and moved to California, and specifically chose Southern California because it was a bigger population, and I thought to be a better chance to get an opportunity um, business wise there, because I arrived at a time when school was already in session. So I had having a job. So I was interviewing, and I ended up with a startup company that was just getting going in those early 70s. And at the time, it was called Federal Express. Of course, the name changed to FedEx some years later. But that's the organization that basically gave me a degree in business education. They spent a lot of time with training and coaching me up as an operations manager. And eventually I moved to Northern California, which is an area I prefer and still live in. Um, and yeah, I ran operations for FedEx back in the early days when there was literally a handful of drivers. I was one of 6 or 8 people in the Western Division when the company started. But
That's incredible.
anyway, stayed with them about 7, 8 years, and they're the ones who taught me those numbers, Jason, because that's the crux of the business was getting the numbers right.
Mm.
And they taught me, how to read the P&Ls and the balance sheets and all that, and not only read them but understand them and make decisions based on those numbers. They taught me how to forecast as well, which was one of the great lessons that I got in business. Because when I work with business owners, the most important thing I get from them early on in the engagement is what's the end game. Because for me, business is a sport. And, if you're coaching a basketball team, at a college level, your goal is to be, going to the Final Four and ultimately playing for the National Collegiate Championship game. So you have a goal, and then reverse engineer back to the first day of practice and every day thereafter. And then coach through all the season, hopefully into playoffs, and ultimately you get that opportunity. But business is the same thing. Jason, you and I know you have a stated goal of what you'd like to do um, at a period in time, and we've been working at it for 10 years, brother, and we've made great progress for sure. Um, so
No,
and
Federal Express, I know the transportation industry, like the numbers are even more important because it's one of the tightest margin, kind of industries out there. Because at the end of the day, people need things from point A to point B. And so who's going to take it there for the least amount of money? Because I already got the goods. I've already got the buyer. I just need to get it there. So I've always been fascinated with it as an industry because of that reason, but also knowing the margins are super tight. So understanding the numbers becomes more important. After FedEx, uh, tell us about what happened after FedEx and kind of your journey through 1-800 Courier and the franchise business. Love to hear that story.
Yeah. Well, quickly after FedEx, I ended up with another corporate job with the Hearst Corporation. And that was where I learned sales management. So I got the operations mindset over at FedEx, and then I worked sales in the Hearst Corporation. So those two gave me the groundwork to then start my own business. And I partnered up with one of my buddies, ex FedEx guy, and we had a same day delivery company before people kind of figured out what same day was. Uh, and now obviously it's it's so common. But in any case, we had a Northern California uh, delivery service. We called it Express It Logistics, and we got an opportunity to start something bigger, which became 1-800 Courier, which was a franchise model. And we started franchising 1-800 Courier across the country and had um, converted companies in Boston, New Hampshire, Minneapolis, Phoenix, Southern California, Portland, selling franchises. So it was a great experience to become a franchisor. Because just like McDonald's, it has to be the same everywhere. That consistency of product, or in this case, a service, had to be spread across all that territory. So it was a great experience for us. We took it up to about 40 million. And the fun part, the entertaining part, Kobe, you'll appreciate that. We weren't making any money at 40 million. Our net profit was like peanuts. So we all had a job. We all got paid. We had our benefits, but the net profit in the business was so minuscule it wasn't worth continuing. So
that makes me so you had experience in being a franchisor, and Jason, I know you hear this all the time too, but I talk to a lot of people, and when I ask them what their vision is, for the future, where they really want to take things, in the handyman space, ultimately they're like, I want to franchise this thing. I want to be in a bunch of different cities. What would you say to those types of people in a home service industry like handyman? I mean, you mentioned, you've got to be super consistent across the board. And obviously it's difficult. Do you think that that's a viable track for a handyman business to take, or a viable goal to have in mind, franchising a handyman business?
Well, it's definitely doable. The big corporation, the Ace Hardware people are doing franchising. They're sort of coming down into the field from their hardware business, of course. So that lets us know it's a viable product. It's something that can and does work. So to go up from being a small regional local handyman business and setting up a franchise network, it's very doable, depending on the skill set of the team, and meaning the management team, ownership team that's putting that together. We were just some people familiar with transportation and saw this opportunity, and we purposely called it 1-800 Courier and had quite a challenge to get that name uh, in place. But we were following the model of 1-800 Flowers back in the day. That was a thing where people dialed that 800 number and were able to get a floral pickup and delivery in any town they were in America. So we sort of followed that model. So there are models to be followed. Ace is an example that the right team could execute that, but it's not an easy task. I can guarantee you that. Took a lot of work on our side to get that all together.
What I tell people that have that kind of ambition is get your home base figured out. Like if it's still requiring the owner and there's fires everywhere and it's not efficient, it's not profitable, like don't even, like, it's good to have those dreams, but you've got to be honest about the current operation, right? Because whenever you expanded to the franchise model, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but your operation there in Northern California, you guys had it kind of the cookie cutter, if you will, where it's like, well, let's take this exact same thing. It's doing well and apply it across the nation. So my question, Michael, is, $40 million company, like that's got to be the most maddening thing to look at numbers and see that kind of top line and to just hardly have anything to speak of it at the bottom line. So what were
Well,
some of
yeah.
your biggest, like,
Well, your comment was correct, Jason. It's a real small margin industry,
mhm,
transportation. And you can look up the numbers for FedEx or UPS and see that's a reality. It's all about volume for them, and it was for us as well. You just need massive volume, and we weren't generating franchises fast enough to get the numbers where they needed to be. Back to your
economies of
point.
scale?
Oh, yeah, it's a scaling game for sure. And back to your point about the local handyman growing into a franchise, get yourself a coach, and not me. Um, we had a coach. I had a coach who helped me who franchising, especially conversion franchising, which is what we were doing, and he had done that with Century 21 Real Estate.
Okay. Yeah. So find a
He
coach
was
that's done what you want to do. So Michael, what was some of the biggest, like what were some of the biggest lessons that you learned from, having this franchise model, $40 million in top line, and then just having to, you know, eh, honestly look at everything and decide to exercise other options outside of that business. So what was some of the biggest lessons that you took with you from that phase of your life?
Oh boy. Got to question what you ask for sometimes. Uh, I found
Hmm.
myself away from home a lot. I mentioned some cities across the country that we were successful in, but I spent a lot of time in a lot of other cities looking at the delivery companies to bring into the franchise. So it was a lot of time away from my family and from the place that I enjoyed living, and then to see those disappointing numbers. Um, but so we
Hmm.
made the right decision. There was a company that was willing to buy the brand from us, take on all the franchisees that we already had. So we had a very successful exit from that, and that company that gave us a lot of money eventually failed at an IPO and went out of business. But it did give our franchisees an opportunity to go somewhere, keep the brand, and uh, and we got a nice chunk of change for the effort that we had put into it. So it was a successful exit from a difficult task.
You've mentioned a lot about knowing your numbers and paying attention to the numbers of the business, and I know you help us do that. Really prudently here. But this is an experience that I had when I was working with various coaches in the remodeling and construction industry. And Jason and I were just talking about this the other day. All of these coaches are always saying, you got to know your numbers. You got to know your numbers. You got to know your numbers. Nobody got specific as to what numbers to pay attention to, what you should actually be looking for, and then what to do about it. And I think anybody who's had a coach, in that space before is probably, probably feels a similar sentiment. It's super super vague. So, what numbers should, particularly like a handyman business, what numbers should they be paying attention to, and why are they important?
There's only one. Business is a sport. Net profit is how we keep score. Okay, that's the scoreboard on the wall in the gym. Okay, I'm looking at the clocks ticking down, and we go quarter by quarter. We get to the end of the game, which you can do as a quarter or you can do it as a year. And you say, what's the score? And net profit's the only score that matters. Top line is nothing. 40 million is nothing. Um, And yeah, there's categories in between. Of course, if you're in a business like mine was, transportation, you got huge labor costs. You've got large insurance costs. You've got vehicles and fuel costs, which some of that you don't have a lot of control over.
Mm.
Example is today's economy where we're sitting here, and gas prices are out of control, as people like to say. And they're certainly out of control of a business that functions with vehicles, and that's typical in a handyman business. So a handyman should have a fuel surcharge attached to, their agreement with their clients to protect themselves. So, there's a lot of critical categories to look at, but you have to study your finances. People say, well, you got to look at your numbers. Well, looking at them is one thing. Reading them is another. Studying them and then taking actions based on what you learn is what makes the difference. That's not looking at your numbers. So any business coach that simply says, look at your numbers, they're not giving you the whole story.
You brought up, sports as an analogy, and, there's a scoreboard and profits, your scoreboard in business. The way I think about it, because I spent a lot of time, you guys know this, paying way too close attention to the revenue and not the profit. When I played football in high school, and I think about it as revenue is like how many yards you ran for in a football game. And you can run for 400 yards in a football game, but if you get stopped at the 10-yard line every time, you don't score any touchdowns, it really doesn't matter at all. So profit is, by your opinion, mine too, is the most important number you need to be paying attention to in business. What if the profit's not where it needs to be? What do you do? Where do you look?
Well, you start digging back through each of the categories that I mentioned. Look at your major categories. If you have labor, between a fully loaded labor charge, people say, well, I pay, $20 an hour. Well, your cost is not $20 an hour. Once you start loading in the insurance and the taxes and all the other things that we, as business owners, end up paying for someone to be an employee. And, so people don't always take a look at that. I mean, I usually use 33 1/3%. Add that to the $20, and that's what it's costing your company per hour to have the employee on the street. So, again, things like fuel surcharge. Um, it goes on and on. Brokers to get your insurance right, whether it's your workers' comp, your liability, or other insurance, vehicle insurances that you need. Putting that out to bid every year, having your broker rebid it and see if you can't squeeze just a quarter of a point off of it. So, understanding each and every single category from office supplies, yeah, you have to understand exactly what you're spending, why you're spending it, and is there a smarter thing to do to save you money? And all that drops to one place, the scoreboard.
So if I'm hearing this right, and I wish Michael was in my corner a couple of years ago, but if I'm hearing this right, the solution to your profit being too low is not more revenue.
No, more revenue is not getting you anywhere. It's controlling the cost of that revenue. Cost of goods. I mean, you're buying product and putting it in people's homes and fixing things. Do you have discounts? Are you getting out there and working with your suppliers to get and keep costs down for the things that you purchase from them? And you have to shop and be smart about shopping when you're talking about cost of goods sold. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
My biggest encouragement on this subject, because without going too much in the weeds of everything you look at in a profit and loss in the financial business, is you need to be looking at your profit and loss, studying it every single month. And if you don't know what you're doing, like I didn't know what I'm doing, you need to have someone in your corner. And that's where Michael has been a huge part of our business, in that I'm at a point now of doing this for almost 10 years where I can now look at any business's profit and loss and kind of field my way around what's going on. And so my encouragement to our listeners is, if you aren't looking at that profit and loss statement every month, you need to start there, and you need to have someone in your corner that can help you understand that. And even more important is the accountability that goes into everything. You don't have to be a master financier, and it's going to take time for you to like kind of be able to digest your numbers and be able to kind of spot like, you know what, I'm losing money on this kind of job because it's always, there's always leaks. Things don't always go as planned. I'm underbidding this one, but until you have that time every month to look at it, that accountability, that coach in your corner that's holding you to your goals and forcing you to do this stuff, most of us don't want to spend that time looking at your numbers. Most entrepreneurs are not wired that way, and that's okay. So my encouragement on this whole subject is to have someone in your corner that knows how to look at that thing, but can also hold you accountable to making it look better.
And it's finance is one of the 8 pillars that I call in business. There's 8 pillars that hold up and support every business, and finance is a key one. And if it's not your niche, it's not your specialty, or you don't like numbers, A, maybe you shouldn't be in business for yourself, but B, find someone who is. Find, whether it's a coach or a great bookkeeper or a CPA, talk to your banker, and make sure you have this whole pillar called finance figured out. And then people like CPAs and bookkeepers and coaches can teach you the numbers. But, if you're a handyman, you're good with your hands. You're good at problem solving. You're good at putting up a ceiling fan and fixing a leaky pipe. That's all great, but that's the operations side of a business. And that's only one of the 8 pillars. And most people are good at it. In my coaching experience, I've worked with all sorts of businesses. I've worked with lawyers. Okay. Great lawyer. I got a great lawyer. Guy knows law like it's unbelievable, his brain and what he can factor and figure out about law. And he can't run a business to save his life.
A
He
lot of
just
us can
cannot
relate
run
to
a
that.
business. His mind does not work in this segment of business. And then it's so true, handyman to digital marketing agencies to jewelry store owners. I mean, I've worked with all kinds of different business people. People are great with jewelry. They're great at sales, but not so good at marketing. They're not so good at finance. They're not very good at building a team. So yeah, those are skills that need to be learned and or delegated to someone else, either as a contractor or as someone on your staff.
One other thing that you mentioned that kind of in passing, but I think it's super important. You mentioned $40 million in revenue with little super minimal profit at the end of the day, but you said you guys got all your benefits and you all got paid. And I think that's an important distinction. And Jason, you and I talk about this a lot, but the profit in the business is what's left over even after you've already paid yourself as the owner of the business. You still get paid your salary, and then there should also be a profit that's left over. So, I mean, just kind of a little side note, but
Yeah, and owner operators, which owner led businesses, smaller operations, that can blend into profit. I know people kind of put it all into one, but I do think out of the gate, having your salary and then the profit at the bottom is a good important distinction, because it's ultimately going to give you information to be well informed if your goal is to hire. Like, what are we working with at the bottom after I'm getting, I need my pay to pay my bills and take care of my family. So one big takeaway on this subject, though, that I have is you got to be honest about what you're good at and what you're not, and to outsource what you're not good at, to get coaching and mentorship and what you're not good at. For me, the financial side of the business was huge. Hiring, I mean, so much. I mean, I just started as a guy who liked to talk to people and help people and knew how to design websites. And you got to learn all these other attributes of how to build culture and hire people, how to look at your profit and loss. What does marketing your own business look like? How do we retain people and keep them coming back for more? and to surround yourself with people like Michael, like, the numerous other people I could mention that's been in my journey the last 10 years. That's my encouragement for our listeners here. Um, any other thoughts on the subject? I've got a question on from what you said, Michael. A few minutes ago, I wanted to kind of change the gear a little bit.
Well,
I got
you're
one.
taking me back. You're taking me back to Placer Digital, Jason. So go ahead with your question.
I got one more caveat. Outsourcing, what you're not good at, and delegating is important. I mean, this is just from my experience. Everybody was telling me, like, it's like, I don't know what a P&L is. And so they said, okay, hire a bookkeeper, an accountant, and outsource it. And so I did that. So I got a bookkeeper, and they run my QuickBooks, and everything was squared away, and I could file my taxes and everything. But because it was taken care of by somebody else, I completely ignored it. And then I stopped looking at my P&Ls. So having somebody help you with it and delegating it and making sure your books are square does not give you an excuse to stop paying attention to the numbers.
Yeah. And there are amazing resources in most communities that are even smaller, like Auburn, California, not a big town. You can get plugged into your Chamber of Commerce. Your bigger town cities will have a small business association and an SBA. People think SBA loans, but the Small Business Association also has guidance and coaches and mentors that you can plug into, sometimes for free or minimal cost, that have experience in business enough to coach you and help you understand these things. Because you're right, Kobe, it's a great point. To totally outsource and delegate something is one thing, but there are aspects of the business that the owner needs to have a pulse on. And, even big businesses, that list is small, but on there, it's the profit and loss, it's the financials. And you need to have some wherewithal and accountability around that. One great kind of side point you mentioned, Michael, that I want to get back to is, you're talking about, building up this Courier franchisor business, and you said at a point you have to remember and question why you're doing this, because you were mentioning traveling all around the nation. You got a family, young kids at that point. Something so our listeners are clear that I've always admired Michael about his business is always called Sundance Coaching. So sundancing. Michael is just the most positive, like joyful man in rain or shine, and has an amazing family, 4 kids, a wife. You guys all get together. Your kids surprise you and fly in on your birthday. Like, it's truly, of all my life experience, it's the dream family that people, they dream about. And Michael has that. And it's because of your leadership and who you are, Michael. And I know Teresa, your wife, is an amazing gal to shepherd these amazing kids that you guys have. So much love in your household. I admire that very much. Going back to my original point, though, question why you're even doing this. I love that. What are some of the biggest, like, whys that people have in business, and I think they're often forgotten? What do you think?
First, thank you for the nice compliments. The pride of my life is my family, my wife and my family, and it's just brings me a great deal of joy. In fact, today is James' birthday. James turned 21 today. But yeah, and some of it goes back to the name of the business, Sundance. It's the way I view life, that life is undecidedly too long or too short to not just dance in the sun. So, and a big part of what I do, and this is this, Jason, it's the secret sauce that I sort of come in as a business coach. That's what I'm hired to be. But realistically, um, one's business and one's personal life are become a tapestry of their life. And so I'm as much a life coach as I am a business coach. But people don't see that part coming because they don't want to hire a life coach because their life's great. At least they feel like it is. But maybe their business isn't, and maybe their business is really causing some life issues. So, uh, you know, helping people with the mindset of a good person. And back to your question, it's not what we become, it's who we become. So think about that. So having the goal of who we become, and it's back to the end of 1-800 Courier. I wasn't happy with who I was becoming, chasing around all over the country, um, and spending a lot of time, and not being successful in the game either, from a business perspective. I didn't want to continue to be that person. I wanted to be somebody else. So that was a part of it. So the why, people ask, what's the why? Well, why do most people become entrepreneurs or business people in the first place? It's they want to be the ones who make the decisions. They want to be the ones who make the choices. They want to be free to not have superiors, people telling them what to do, other than maybe the big guy, but listening carefully to the reality that I want to be free. I want to be free to work with whoever I like working with. That's one of my mantras. That's why I'm a boutique company. I never work with more than a handful of entrepreneurs at a time. Um, you know, Time is the big winner. Why being free of your time to not be, uh, you know, working it for the clock. Well, Kobe, I mean, how much time were you free from your business, and how much time were you chained to your business as you were trying to turn it into a successful enterprise?
The
So I
whole
don't know
time,
the
a lot
question,
of
Jason.
hours.
So what is like what is like the common thread? Because you've worked with so many businesses over the years. Like, what is if you had to put your finger on kind of the main thing? Like, what are people getting wrong? Like, what that they're just not seeing? Like, what would you say the biggest problem is that entrepreneurs are kind of blind to that's really holding them back?
Well, depending on their personal goals in terms of growing a business, um, it's knowing how to get out of the way. You've heard this before. It's the owner who isn't willing to delegate, and an owner who isn't very good at developing a team and in turning over the responsibility to the people that they bring in to do the jobs that they are. They tinker, they get in the way. I learned from FedEx the key to hiring, the key to a successful team building in that industry is hiring the right people, giving them great quality training, and then giving them the tools that they need to do their job, and then to give them the opportunities that they're looking for in terms of growth and development within an organization. If you do those four things and you do it really, really well, you have a pretty good chance of growing the right players on your team, and get out of the way and let them do what they're there to do. That's the biggest issue I find with small business owners is they still want to be hands-on with everything, and they run people off. They have high turnover. They don't have good morale in their organization. You know how much I talk about culture, Jason, in our meetings. When you're the owner, you're responsible for the culture. And part of that is to empower people to do a great job, reward them when they do. And it isn't always just dollars and cents, it's recognition, uh, yeah, paying for people to go on vacation, things like that, things that you do, and developing a great culture in the organization. And that comes from a mindset of the leader.
So why do you think entrepreneurs are so drawn to like that being a problem? Like they can't truly let things go. And what would you say to someone who's really struggling with that and they can acknowledge that for themselves? Like where should they start? Like how do you fix that?
Well, it's a skill. It's a skill like any other skill in business or in life. You have to develop it. You have to work at it. You have to first identify it and realize it's a problem that you don't have the skill set to hire and empower the right players onto your team. So you need, to go back and look at that. You can you can get coaching, teaching, training on how to do a good interview, how to write a successful help wanted ad that really describes your organization and gives people an idea that you're something different and unique in the way you approach things. So yeah, there's opportunities to learn that skill. And if you fail, you're going to fail. I mean, you're not going to establish a culture. And when you look at the successful businesses in history, a lot of it has to do with culture.
That's awesome. Huge takeaway I got from that is, as the owner of the business, you have to take ownership of every aspect of the business. And everything is a skill that can be learned or developed. And so if you've got a culture issue, it's a skill issue with the owner, whether it was you hired the wrong people, you didn't have the skills to find and hire the right people, or the skills to train the right people. Everything in your business from the ground up is a skill that you as the owner can develop and improve on, that makes the whole business better. And if you've got problems in your business, more than likely it's a you problem or a skill problem. You lack a skill somewhere, which is empowering, because if it's a you problem and it's a skill problem, that means it's something that you can work on, you can improve, and you can fix, and kind of offloading the blame or the problems on other people and just say, oh, I didn't have the right employees, or whatever it looks like, just doesn't really help anybody.
I love what you said there, Kobe, like the extreme ownership of all these variables and taking fault to it. Like, I could do better here. And I think to do that, but also be fully delegating, it takes a lot of practice to be delegating things. And if something goes wrong, even though it's someone else's job, like as the owner, like how could I have helped shepherd this person or make it better? One kind of takeaway, Michael, from what you're saying is it comes down to the people. And my biggest learning experience, one of my biggest mistakes in business was my first hire. I mean, Michael, you were around for that. It was a colossal failure, and I learned so much, and I lost quite a bit from that. And when I think about this whole subject of people, and how often do we hire an amazing person, but they don't work out because of our leadership, because of our culture. One encouragement I have for every leader out there, every business owner, is you don't realize the impact you might have on your culture if you're not showing up the same every day. As in, good day, bad day, everyone has a hodgepodge of all that. Sometimes you go through major life circumstances that make life and work really difficult. And the difference between a leader and just someone that might have a job somewhere is you've got to show up for your team and your people and be steady and even. We cannot be showing up and putting our bad day on our team, because even if we have really good people, there's cracks there in the relationship and trust and respect. And so, in this whole vein of culture and keeping good people, which is an absolute key to kind of keep the business growing, and to truly remove yourself from certain aspects of it. I just wrote down, it comes down to the people and then how we show up to support them.
Yeah, well, in the world of hiring, you hire for attitude and character. Whatever the skill is, the skill can be taught. And the handyman's a great example, and I do, as you know, work with a handyman. Well, no longer a handyman business, but you know, to go in and hire somebody who's been in the construction business. You've done that before, Kobe. Okay, but you kind of fudged on the character and maybe the attitude because they had this great skill set that you needed to grow your remodeling business. As opposed to hiring someone with a real positive, uplifting attitude, and you've done the research and find that they are a strong person of strong character that you bring onto your team. We've all made the mistake. I mean, I am certainly not alone in making that mistake of hiring for the wrong reasons.
Cool. So in the same vein, like what are like the key attributes of a business owner that build a business that doesn't rely on them? Because I know that's the dream for most people. When we think about, the question why we're doing this, we want freedom of time, to have vacation with the family, freedom of finance, to do financially better than our previous career could afford us. And for most to achieve both those things, you can do it as an owner operator, but most want to have at least, a small team that's running a local home service business. Like, what are the key attributes a business owner should be focusing on if that's their goal?
You're kind of broken up, Jason. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah. What are the key attributes like a business owner or things that someone needs to pay attention to if they are trying to build their handyman home service business to not rely on them every day to answer the phone, to show up to the job site? Like, what are some of the things someone should be paying attention to and building up their skills or attributes or things they should be thinking about if that's their goal over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's a learning process. You can come out of school, if you will, as a business major, and fail being an entrepreneur without a doubt. Um, so as you come into a business, a lot of the game is mental, and it's all in having that vision. Again, going back to the end game of where do you want to be? If you want to have, 10 trucks operating in 3 different cities in Ohio, and that's your goal. That's your stated goal. That's where you're headed. That's where you're going. And you, again, reverse engineer to get there. So keeping that in mind and using it as a filter in all the different things that you do. So it's like sport. Again, I keep going back to that analogy, but it's true, that we have to have these filters in our mind. When you look at college basketball players today, the area that I was in when I was younger, the talent's about the same across the board. There's a lot of talented, quote, basketball players. There's a lot of talented handymen. Okay, so how do we end up in the right place? It's all between the ears, as the coaches like to say. It's getting everybody on the same page, getting them to work together. Much easier said than done. And if there's a skill for an entrepreneur to learn, it's having that long-term vision and working backward to get it one step at a time. You mentioned baby steps earlier, Jason. It
Mm.
is just baby steps, and keep an eye on, are you in the right path or are you straying from the path? By constantly checking in. And that's whether it's checking in on the finances, checking in on the clients, checking in with the team, um, checking in with, your family. You know, you better check in with the family once in a while, or you may not have one.
I
Yeah.
love the idea of having filters, knowing where you want to go, knowing why you want to go there helps you set those filters in place to know, like, if I'm going to spend time on this, is this going to get me closer or further away or get me nowhere at all towards towards ultimately where I'm trying to go. Because it's super easy as a business owner to be working really hard and be super busy and not actually be productive and heading in the right direction because you're working on things that they're just not that important. And so knowing where you're going, I think it's a great point. It's important to know where you're headed so you can have those filters in place. So you make sure you're actually heading in the right direction. You got something to check yourself against.
Mm.
And busy is a disease, Kobe. It's a disease, especially for a business person. And you can just put 3 filters into your decision making. It's time, it's money, and is it right? Okay, are you doing the right thing? Is it the right decision on the money? Is it the right decision on the time? And every little thing that comes at you, which as a business owner, it's all the time, things are coming at you. And if you just put 3 filters in place before you make the decision, you'll more likely than not make more good decisions than bad.
Mm.
I love that so much. I think I just said on, I don't know what podcast episode it was, Jason, but I started filtering things through, does this, before I would do something, does this, end up with more money on the bottom line? And I love the
Mhm.
3 filters that you put in place, Michael. It is far wiser, and way better thought out than the filter I was using. I love that.
Yeah, I love the busy is a disease, and I'd like to kind of address that. And I totally agree. It feels there's some comfort in busyness, and I think you're most susceptible to busyness. I was going to say in the first startup phase when it's just you, yourself, and I, and maybe with 1 or 2 people, but there's always this problem of busyness. And the I would say if I had to pick like one amongst the big benefits, Michael, of like working with you and my encouragement of everyone out there finding a local coach they can work with, is you hold me accountable and our team accountable to not just being busy, but being productive. So here's a framework that's worked great for us, as far as a cadence of how, we're constantly working towards, these baby steps to go the distance, right? To reach our bigger goals. Every week we meet with Michael, me, Kobe, our other main operational leader, and we set what we call them pebbles now. We set a top 3. So we set 3 activities that week that each of us are going to get done that doesn't have to be done for the business to operate, but they need to be done so we can keep getting better and improve. So a top 3 meeting is something that's worked great for us. And of course, years back, Michael, it's just you and me, and you were just kicking me in the rear about getting my top 3 done. We now tie those 3 weekly pebbles into like more bigger quarterly projects that we've set. We want to get these big projects done this next 3 months. And then we've got our annual goals, but really rooting these little baby steps, these little pebbles that turn into rocks and boulders, rooting them into your regular weekly, monthly routines within your company, even if it's just yourself, to pull in some accountability like a coach, someone like Michael, has been hands down one of the biggest game changers in our business, in my life, is just someone that's in your corner that holds you accountable to not just being busy, but being productive. Because busyness, I agree, it is a disease when that's all you're doing.
If you believe it's a disease, you want to get the word out of your vocabulary. Okay. And
Yeah.
this, Jason,
Yeah.
if I get in touch with you, and you better tell me you're having an action-packed day or you're having a
Busy.
productive day, but you dare not tell me you're having a busy day,
Yeah.
because if you tell me you're busy, I'm telling you you're sick.
Mm.
And I don't mean in a positive way.
I got a vaccine for that.
It's just a thing. Again, it's semantics, and it's your mindset. It's how you think and
Yeah.
the words you use, whether the words you're at. How many people do you talk to in a day, and then you say, "How's your day?" "Oh, it's busy." It's the common fallback for it's not as productive as it needs to be, but it's busy. I'm getting things done. I'm checking things off my list. It's like, no, that's really, really a problem. And yeah, that's another entrepreneurial trap
Yeah.
that people fall into. And you can be really busy, Kobe, but that's not getting us where we need to go. We're not getting to the championship by being busy. We're getting to the championship by focusing on fundamentals. Fundamentals. I talked about these 8 pillars. It's your marketing, it's your sales, it's your client service, it's your team, it's your management style, it's operations, it's finance, it's administration. All those. They're 8 hats, and you got to wear them all. You're a business owner. You got to keep moving them around, and you got to be knowing where they're all at all the time. But you don't have to be doing them all. You have people that help you. Whether they're outsourced or whether they're people in your organization. Maybe it's just your wife or significant other that's a part of this. And trust me, he or she is a part of it. So you need to be, again, in tune with that and be thinking, because the thoughts in our head and the words that come out of our mouth make a huge difference.
The example that always comes to mind for me personally when it comes to busy versus productive was Kobe having like 3 or 4 estimates that he owed people that he needed to write and send out, and instead of doing that, spending hours in Canva or whatever it was at the time designing a new logo for the company, which I think it turned out pretty sweet. Did it make me any more money? Certainly not. If it did, I certainly couldn't point to how it did. But I felt busy and productive, and it looked cool and made me feel like I was moving the needle, but I certainly was not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at your business, handyman marketing pros, right? Pros. Okay. I'm a handyman. How much do I know about making a website? And yet, how many handymen start a business and they spend time that they don't have they're busy working on a website. Why would they be doing that? You know, working on a logo. Come on, there's marketing people that can help you with that are professionals. And that's why, Handyman Marketing Pros is so successful. All those great handymen in North America just turn that stuff over to you guys, and it's fantastic. It's beautiful. It's consistent. And their phones are ringing, their emails are coming in, they're getting business left, right, and sideways because it's being managed by a professional organization. And all they have to do is stay in touch with you as their outsourced teammate that's taking care of business.
Mm.
I really wish I hope that people really internalize the 3 filters that you mentioned earlier. Money, time, and is it right? I wish I would have known this years ago, Michael, or thought about it at least, because if I was sitting down to make a new logo and I passed through those filter, money, it was free because Kobe was doing it. Time, definitely not free. I spent hours working out a logo when I should have been writing estimates, and it would have stopped right there, and I would have moved on to something that actually moved the needle, because I could have paid somebody else to make that logo for me for less money than my time was worth. I don't know, really love those filters that you gave.
Yeah, a couple
Yeah, it's like
notes I wrote down.
well, I'm sorry. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're a small business. Get QuickBooks." Well, okay, so now I'm going to learn QuickBooks. I'm not that. No, thank you. I need to put up a ceiling fan and make some money. I don't need to learn QuickBooks. Oh yeah, it's for every small business owner has to know QuickBooks. Gosh, why not? No, you need a bookkeeper who knows QuickBooks and a bookkeeper that can help coach you. Anyway,
Yep.
sorry, Jason.
For me, it was a bookkeeper that sent me the reports that I didn't know what they were, and then having a coach, mentor that knew how to translate those, and then just over time learning. And so I certainly we've had QuickBooks for years and years and years, and I couldn't tell you how to navigate the dang thing. We just get a report from the bookkeeper. Bookkeepers are a relatively cheap service. Highly recommend for anybody, even if you're a startup. Couple notes that I had jotted from that last kind of segment there, like fundamentals. I'm big on fundamentals. I think that was a big quote that Michael Jordan had. Just focus on the fundamentals. Really good jump shot. It helps to be able to dunk it like nobody else. But like when I think about business fundamentals, and whenever I do coaching trainings for handyman businesses, talk about marketing, there's all this advanced stuff. Sure, you can go into, but at the end of the day, the fundamentals is have such an amazing service that people want to call you back and tell all their friends about. Like if you focus on that and just delivering that amazing service to that level, and then when you add in marketing and looking professional, like the fundamental is this great, amazing service that speaks for itself, that kind of spreads naturally. But then when you add good marketing around it, it just kind of amplifies, allows you to increase your pricing, all these other things. But focusing on the fundamentals, I think is huge. I think a lot of business owners, myself included, are guilty of chasing things that are not fundamental when, frankly, a lot of our baseline fundamentals could be made better and our time is better invested into that. The second thing I had written down is mindset. I know, Michael, it's something I've really admired and learned a lot from you about, is that mindset, a positive mindset. And certainly when you call and say how my day is, I don't say it's been a busy day. I've learned that. But just the value of showing up with a positive attitude, even if things aren't going as planned, to still show up and be hopeful and make the best of what you got. I think that's such a valuable kind of thing to learn and get ingrained, and to kind of double down and summarize it with what you said of what we're thinking and the words that we're saying, they matter. And over time, they can really shape who we become.
Well, let me go back to your Michael Jordan for a moment, if I could,
I'm not
and talk.
surprised.
Well, I kind of migrate in that direction. But when you think about the guy and talk about fundamentals, you said, "Oh, shoot. You know how many shots? Guess what? You know how much time Michael Jordan spent on dribbling practice, fundamental of dribbling the ball, not glamorous, no points scored. How much time he spent on passing drills, passing, both passing and catching, pitch and catch. So critical to the game. And people don't think about Michael Jordan doing practice on passing, but Michael Jordan never stopped practicing his passing. And you talk about mindset, think about the flu game. He came out of a sick bed with a 104-degree temperature, and he wasn't going to let his team down. He came out and played one of the best games of his career when he was deathly ill, but his mindset was, my goal, big picture, is the championship. I'm going to hold up that trophy at the end of the season, and I don't care what it takes. I'm going to go out and contribute for my team today. And so the mental part is fundamental, the mental fundamental of the game, and all the physical fundamentals, and not just the pretty stuff like the shots that go in or the phenomenal dunks that he could make because he could jump so high. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things that you've certainly taught me over the years is just that mindset. And even, when you look at the sports analogy, if you're just getting clobbered, that's okay. You're going to show up and leave it all on the court, right? You're going to show up and make the best with what you got, even if you're totally outclassed or you're not having a good month, not having a good quarter, whatever that looks like. To still have that good mindset and gratitude of showing up and like, you know what? The classic saying between me and Michael has always been, it beats the bank. My former career was in banking and finance. And so, on the worst times, Michael, I remember you saying, well, kid, it beats the bank, doesn't it? I'm like, yeah, it does beat the bank. I'd rather be totally failing and having a tough time at this than back at that juncture. So, looking to wrap up here, guys, pretty soon here. I've got one more closing question for Michael. Kobe, before I kind of interject there, did you have anything else lingering that you wanted to ask Michael?
I've got a question for you, Jason. So you've been working with Michael for going on 10 years. And then, you and us at Handyman Marketing Pros were also members of a different coaching group that's specific to marketing agencies. And it's similar to a lot of the coaching programs in the handyman and contracting space where it's, group Zoom calls and there's trainings and Facebook group and that sort of thing. What's the main differences between working with somebody more one-on-one like Michael, who's more of a general business coach, and something more industry specific and that kind of like group setting? And is one better than the other, or would you do one before the other?
Yeah, good question, man. So I've always overinvested in coaching. We, our baseline for quite a few years now, we've had 3 coaches. We've got Michael as like a business, finance, accountability coach, like regular weekly accountability. We have a group coaching where we get to learn the nitty gritty of our specific industry. There's a few options out there for handyman businesses. Of course, Alan Lee and the Handyman Journey is an awesome one to really learn the specifics of running a handyman business. And then third is we invest in what's called leadership coaching. And Kobe, Lauren, you guys are a part of that. And that's more one-on-one kind of work that really focus on that tapestry of personal and business for your leaders, people that are extra important to accelerate the business and to um, like it's no secret that our professional growth follows our personal growth, and so those are the three buckets. My guidance is that I would always start with a one-on-one accountability kind of coach partner like Michael, because at the end of the day, we need to stay productive. We need someone to hold us accountable to things. My experience in groups is it sometimes lacks that like accountability, like extreme accountability. Like if I'm not doing something or consistently failing, like Michael's giving me a call and calling me out about like, hey man, yeah, we gotta start doing better here. You've been saying you want to do these things and they haven't been getting done. You kind of lack that extreme accountability in a group setting, depending on kind of what you're signed up for. So that's a long answer to your question, but I advise most people to start with more extreme accountability of a finance business coach that will be in your corner. Um, Second, I would absolutely, as soon as you can afford it, to get more specialty coaching that knows your business. I think that you don't need that to be making a salary income to provide for your family as an owner operator. I do believe you need that to grow beyond yourself. And so those are kind of my suggested layers for listeners is, it's okay to have multiple mentors and coaches. The more you have, the better, within reason. That's where I would start.
It's good stuff. That aligns with what I would, that's what I would advise somebody to do also. And I didn't do it. I joined the group coaching things, early on in the business, and I did get value out of it, but it always lacked, like you said, that accountability. Um, and man, I would have killed for some like one-on-one help because every business is a little bit different, and somebody to take a little bit of a closer look with you, and really help on the things that you need help with, specific to your situation,
Hmm.
is crazy, crazy valuable.
Yep. So I think if you're honest with your situation, you can kind of piece together what works best for you. But one on one, that extreme accountability, a business coach like Michael is absolutely my number one. And I think that the leadership coaching, more personal development, I think that's super important to have, regardless, even if it's just yourself, because when you're hiring people, when you have a team, clients, good day or bad day, you've got to show up like it's at least a decent day. Because if you're moody, if you're saying things that are kind of blunt or come off the wrong way, you could get away with it a handful of times, as long as you kind of own up to that. But it rubs off on your clients. It rubs off on your team. And one of my favorite quotes I picked up in my life is, you can spend a lifetime getting to know somebody, yet they can reveal their true character in a single situation. I think it's so important for any business owner to show up every day. Like, you got to be able to put your junk to the side and serve that person, whether it is a team member or your client. If you're not, and there's inconsistencies, I think you're going to lose respect and culture in your company, and you might lose some clients and kind of tarnish your brand and reputation along the way as well, if you aren't showing up as an even keeled leader, good day or bad day. Um, Slight tangent, but kind of getting back to Michael here. My question, man, is like, what is the biggest lesson that you learned in your journey so far, or bigger lessons that come to mind, through your experience, Michael, that you'd like to pass on to our listeners here today?
I mentioned it earlier, and it's who you become as a human being,
Mm.
as a person. Um, as in my case, as a man, growing as a person, and being meaningful to those around you, and then whether that's in your business, in your church, in your community, the wanting and needing, as we all do as human beings, to give back and be grateful for what we have. So, um, living this attitude of gratitude and having a positive uh, mindset all comes down to who I want to be. Who do I want to be to others? Who do I want to be to you two guys? That's more important than what I am. What I am is just a dang, size 15 business coach who is holding you accountable and pushing you here and there and everywhere. But it's really a who question.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think that's the biggest thing for me.
I loved your honesty and like when you're, in the grind of the franchisor and traveling and the big top line revenue and, realizing you weren't spending near enough time with your family and that thought of like, this is not who I want to become. Like I'm becoming something that I don't want to become. That, that honesty of that self-assessment is so important. So thanks for passing that one on.
My
All
pleasure.
right. Yeah, Michael, thanks so much for taking the time, man. Great episode. Maybe we'll have a part two, kind of catch up on your journey down the road. But thanks for taking the time, man. It's always a pleasure having a conversation and kind of learning from your life wisdom.
Oh, great to be with you guys as always. As much as I enjoy our brief times together, this has been a lot of fun to spend a little bit more time and a little bit more history and kind of a bigger picture thing for me to share with you guys. So I appreciate it, and hopefully, there's a nugget here or there for the audience that watches it, and the very best to all of them.
I'm sure. I've got a paper full of scribbled notes. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Home Hero podcast. If you're enjoying it, remember to like and subscribe on whatever platform you listen on. It really goes a long way for us. If joining a community of like-minded business owners to share ideas, solve problems, and learn together sounds interesting to you, check out the Home Hero Business Owner community on Facebook. The link will be in the description.